Buenos dias! Bitte umsteigen. Aus dem Materialwagen, mit dem du seit Sonntag hoffentlich schon gefahren bist, wenn nicht, noch nachholen. Bist du heute wieder wie gewohnt im Besenwagen gelandet. Allerdings mal wieder in der internationalen Version. Wenn du also nach dem allgemeinen Palaver in der ersten Hälfte plötzlich nur noch Train Station verstehst, liegt das am englischsprachigen Gast. Von Team Sky nach Katusha zum Unbound-Sieg fahren wir mit ihm heute. Also such den Platz, schnall dich an und ab geht die Post. Mein Name ist Bastian Marx.
Meiner ist Paul Voss.
Und meiner liegt Dorf.
Und die Latenz zwischen Andi und mir ist heute sehr gering, weil wir mal nebeneinander sitzen. Aber trotzdem hat er so eine Lücke nach meinem Namen.
Es liegt nicht an der Internetverbindung, siehst du. Ich bin einfach ein bisschen langsamer. Ja, heute hatte ich auf jeden Fall auch eine Latenz so tagsüber, weil Paul hat mich hängen lassen. Der hat mich ja eigentlich hier zum Fahrradfahren animiert. Gestern Carbo-Loading gemacht, Fahrrad geputzt vorher. War eigentlich schon bereit. Dann hat mich Paul einfach versetzt.
Ja.
Klassiker, sag ich nur.
Ja, Paul hat jetzt den letzten Tag Winterpause nochmal richtig Winterpause machen wollen, glaube ich, weil der muss jetzt jeden Morgen schon wieder richtig mit Training anfangen.
Ja, ich habe eine kleine NRW-Tour gemacht, war gestern bei Abus und jetzt heute bei meinem Trainer. Und der hat mir dann mitgeteilt, dass ich ab morgen wieder trainieren darf. Nach ein bisschen über 2 Wochen Pause. Eigentlich wollten wir heute Abend da hier auch noch essen gehen. In einem modernen deutschen Restaurant, wie Andi es genannt hat. Aber das musste ich leider auch absagen, weil ich mich doch dazu entschieden habe, einfach jetzt hier nach der Aufnahme nach Hause zu fahren, zurück nach Berlin, damit ich morgen...
Pedal to the Metal, Paul Voss, der Transporter.
Ja. Sieht auf jeden Fall jetzt auch so ähnlich aus mit seinem neuen Auto.
Ja, also ich bin schon voll drin. Ich habe jetzt 450 Kilometer in den letzten 3 Tagen.
Ich habe das schon eben, Paul, alles analysiert.
Und wir sind eigentlich bei der Analyse auf den Punkt gekommen, dass ich erwartet hätte, dass du mehr Trainingstage und Stunden hast als ich, aber ich bin doch noch ein bisschen vor dir. Aber ich hätte mich jetzt auch nicht gewundert, wenn es mehr gewesen wären als bei mir.
Zum Glück. Nee, diese Woche habe ich mich schon gefreut. Nochmal, also ich gehe jetzt nicht irgendwie drüber oder so, aber schon jeden Tag richtig fahren hier.
Gar nicht drüber.
Ich bin heute mit dem
6 Stunden schon einmal auf dem Tacho gehabt.
Ja, gut. Warte ab. Ich bin heute mit dem Sohn von Marcel Wüst gefahren.
Ah, ja.
Den kannte ich bis dahin auf jeden Fall auch noch nicht. Und der fährt auch noch nicht so lange Rad und der will nächstes Jahr Rennen fahren.
Wirklich? Wie alt ist der jetzt?
Ist irgendwie, ich weiß gar nicht. Auf jeden Fall, also ich habe einen Kumpel von mir aus Köln hat den mitgebracht heute, die sind beste Freunde.
Okay.
Und der fährt schon Elite-Amateur und aber Alex Wüst hat wohl sein erstes Rennen in Bickendorf dieses Jahr gefahren, aber sich auch direkt richtig auf die Fresse gelegt. Also das war's bis jetzt, aber nächstes Jahr will er angreifen.
Stark.
Aber Amateure erstmal. Ich denke mal so Mitte, Ende 20 würde ich sagen, ist er. Also noch.
Echt?
Wird vielleicht dann nichts mehr mit dem Profivertrag, würde ich sagen.
Ich dachte, der wäre jetzt so vielleicht 20.
Ja, es kann auch sein, aber der ist auf jeden Fall, der Bartwuchs ist stabil im Hause Wüst.
Kann auch sein, dass er erst 12 ist. Einfach nur ein sehr starker Bartwuchs.
Also es scheinen auf jeden Fall einige Leute auf der Insel zu sein zum Radfahren. Wie ist denn Mallorca mittlerweile so im Herbst? Ich war da schon länger nicht mehr um die Jahreszeit. Und das letzte Mal, als ich da war es schon recht voll. Und jetzt habe ich mir sagen lassen, muss man auch teilweise in der Schlange stehen, um sich an der Tankstelle noch mal was zu trinken zu holen.
Nee, das geht auf jeden Fall. Also radfahrtechnisch ist echt, also nicht ganz leer, aber es ist auf jeden Fall nicht so viel los. Ist jetzt nicht wesentlich mehr los als so Dezember bis Februar, würde ich sagen. Halt keine Profis. Aber das geht. Aber tatsächlich bin ich jetzt jeden Tag auf dem Rückweg einen kompletten Ballermann von unten hochgefahren. Und da ist noch richtig was los. Das habe ich noch nie gesehen hier tatsächlich. Weil wir waren jetzt irgendwie 2-mal an Ostern da und dann waren wir immer auf der anderen Seite der Insel. Und sonst bin ich ja echt immer nur irgendwie im Dezember bis Februar da gewesen und da ist halt gar nichts los. Aber hier ist jetzt noch relativ viel so Partyvolk unterwegs.
Ach, seid ihr Ballermann?
Ganz, ganz lustig. Ich bin jetzt nur noch heute Abend hier und dann also heute Abend kommt hier Doc Hollywood an und morgen ziehen wir um in ein Haus in die Mitte.
Also heute Abend nochmal Megapark quasi abreisen?
Heute nochmal, also Megapark hat mir eben schon jemand geschrieben, hätte schon zu, aber so, ich glaube, So ein paar Läden sind auf jeden Fall
also
offen.
Bierkönig ist offen.
Ja, Bierkönig ist immer offen.
Bierkönig.
Der ist auch, also da weiß ich noch, dass wir irgendwie mit 18 oder 19 war ich da mit dem Radteam schon und es gab zwei Bier zum Preis von einem.
Ja, ich muss ja sagen, ich war da leider auch schon mal.
Ja, ich glaube, wir waren da alle.
Leider, ja.
Aber ich muss trotzdem immer, ich war wirklich noch nicht so oft da. Aber ich muss dann immer diese 2 Bier für den Preis von einem, das hat sich so eingebrannt, weil wir waren dann auch mal in einer Runde da. Da war ich auf jeden Fall noch im Nachwuchsbereich und ein paar Profis waren dabei und das war so ein privates Trainingslager auf jeden Fall, in dem wir da waren. Und als wir dann mal in diesen Bierkönig reingehen, um ein Bier zu trinken, war dann so die Frage, so ja, teilen wir uns dann zu zweit? Ne, dieses Angebot, 2 für 1. Und dann war einer dabei, der so völlig fassungslos mich angeguckt hat und so gar nicht verstehen konnte, was ich gerade von ihm wollte. Und der war aber nicht so lange Profi. der hat nämlich zweimal 2 für 1, 2 für 2, also 4 für 2 hat er genommen.
Also, okay, egal. Aber ich glaube, ich bin dieses Jahr, will ich glaube ich auch nochmal nach Malle. Also ich habe schon auch Bock, nochmal irgendwie so 3 Dreierblöcke da abzureißen. War lange nicht mehr da, jetzt ein paar Jahre.
Ja.
Wird mal wieder Zeit.
Ja, ich hatte auch Bock, aber nicht um 3 Dreierblöcke abzureißen. Das wäre das, worauf ich am wenigsten Bock hätte.
Ja. Ey, okay,
Basti, ich habe schon geguckt, Basti. Ich war eben, als Folgenvorbereitung habe ich Zeit in deinem Strava-Account verbracht. Du hast auf jeden Fall jetzt nochmal einen Dreierblock vorgelegt auch, ne? Also.
Ja, genau. Also ich bin für 2 Dreierblöcke da. Ich mache jetzt morgen, müssen wir umziehen und so weiter, mache ich auch gar nichts. Und dann, Donnerstag ist dann Birthday Ride und dann Freitag, Samstag, mal gucken, aber ich will schon fahren.
Und was gibt's denn am Donnerstag? Geht es dann so richtig auf die Inselrunde oder?
Boah, keine Ahnung, mal abwarten, wie die Gruppe so drauf ist, aber hauptsächlich dann Donnerstagabend nochmal richtig essen gehen, glaube ich. Mal schauen, was passiert.
Okay, ja, eigentlich eine geile Sache. So über den Geburtstag mal ein bisschen Fahrrad fahren.
Aber trotzdem ist mal eine kurze Frage. Also du hast ja sonst, habt ihr immer so Einer-Blöcke gemacht. Also ein. Und jetzt habt ihr euch dann auf 2 Blöcke hochgearbeitet?
Nee, Wilma
jetzt
ist ja
3?
nicht mit mir da gerade. So, Wilma ist ja separat von mir gerade da. So, deswegen fahre ich einfach, ich fahre jetzt einfach.
Wie
also
sie ist separat von dir da?
Sonst haben wir das ja immer gemacht. Wilma ist mit so einem Frauencamp unterwegs.
Okay.
Also die hat sich da eingebucht. Die haben aber heute Ruhetag gemacht. Also sie haben nur Zweierblock gemacht und Wilma war noch nicht ausgelastet. Und dann hat die sich heute bei uns angeschlossen.
Ja.
Und morgen gibt es da irgendwie, glaube ich, nochmal Ruhetag oder so.
Okay.
Ich weiß es nicht genau, keine Ahnung. Ja, deswegen, ich bin hier solo erstmal 3 Tage und habe halt bin 3 Tage gefahren. Und sonst machen wir das ja für Wilma. Ihr wisst es, Wilma mega stark, aber bei Reise auch immer gern krank, deswegen immer soft. Deswegen immer so eine Fahrt und dann erstmal gucken. Erstmal wirken lassen.
Keine Ahnung, also jetzt haben wir gerade so einen Schnitt hier gehabt, den der Fabian hoffentlich rausgenommen hat, vielleicht auch nicht, um Kontext zu liefern. Auf jeden Fall hatte ich schneide ja diese Outside-Preview und US-Report-Folgen selber und habe einmal vergessen, einen Teil rauszuschneiden, wo der Thomas, mit dem ich das aufnehme, Grüße gehen raus, kurz mit seinen Kindern geschimpft haben, weil die so spät noch wach waren und immer in das Arbeitszimmer reingekommen sind. Und das ist so ein Abschnitt von, glaube ich, über 2 Minuten. Wo du so im Hintergrund immer hörst, wie die Kinder irgendwas fragen. Und er sagt, nein, ihr müsst jetzt wirklich auch ins Bett gehen. Und das war halt so geil. Und dann wisst ihr, wie es ist mit dem Hochladen. Man lädt es hoch, auch wenn man es abändert. Wenn die Leute schon aufs Handy runtergeladen haben, dann bleibt das da. Ja, gut. Das als kleine Zeitrandnotiz. Aber lass mal jetzt hier ins aktuelle Geschehen rein. Es gab ja endlich die lang erwartete Verkündung eines Transfers.
Warte noch ganz kurz. Letzte Allgemeinteil. Nochmal danke. Wir haben sau viele Zuschriften und sehr viel positives Feedback für diese Materialwagen-Folge am Sonntag bekommen. Also heute auch nochmal voll viel auf dem Instagram-Kanal. Freut mich sehr. Weiter geht's.
Ja.
Wir haben natürlich auch so eine sehr sehr spannende Geschichte als ersten ausgekoppelt. Haben die Latte schon hochgelegt. Mal gucken, wie es weitergeht.
Ich habe auch noch ein Feedback, was ich gerne mit reinnehmen würde. Und zwar haben wir in der letzten Folge darüber gesprochen, dass Rosa Klöser jetzt die erste Frau ist, die vom Gravel-Bereich in den Women's WorldTour-Bereich wechselt. Stimmt aber gar nicht. Da gibt es nämlich noch jemanden, hat uns nämlich ein Hörer oder eine Hörerin, ich weiß gar nicht jetzt genau,
eine Hörerin,
zugeschickt, und zwar Gerike Schröers, wenn ich das jetzt hier mal richtig ausgesprochen habe, aus Holland, war erst Soigneur beim Team SD Works, ist dann jetzt eine Zeit lang als Gravel Pro unterwegs gewesen und macht auch 2025 ihr Debüt in der Women's World Tour bei SD Works wieder. Also, ja.
Genau, sie ist dieses Jahr für SD Works auch Gravel gefahren. Also die hatte schon den Team-Support.
Trikot an,
genau.
Ne?
Ja, also gibt es mehrere. Vielen Dank für den Hinweis. Hatte ich überhaupt nicht auf dem Schirm.
Ja, ich habe es, um ehrlich zu sein, ich wusste es, aber irgendwie dachte ich, dass sie schon Teil des Teams auch dieses Jahr gewesen, also des World Tour Teams. Dessen war das für mich gar nicht so, obwohl ich mitbekommen habe, dass es eine News dazu gab, dass sie einen Vertrag unterschreibt. Aber ja, ich habe das dann irgendwie nicht so in Verbindung miteinander gebracht. Aber ja.
Ja, vorher einfach als Betreuerin dabei gewesen und jetzt als 3 Jahre später oder so einen anderen Vertrag bekommen als Fahrerin. Auch nicht schlecht.
Richtig nice. Ja, ich habe da übrigens mal, vielleicht kann uns ja auch jemand mal einen Kontakt durchgeben, aber ich habe einfach mal übers Kontaktformular des Teams einfach mal dahin geschrieben, ob wir mal, weil SD-Works würde mich schon mal mega interessieren, ehrlich gesagt, so Team-Insight-mäßig, ob wir da mal ein Interview mit irgendjemand Verantwortlichem führen können. Mal gucken, ob ich da irgendwann eine Antwort kriege.
Spricht da irgendwer Deutsch von den Fahrerinnen?
Ich glaube jetzt nicht
mehr.
mehr.
Ne? Nicht davon aus. Also ich hätte ja auch gern einen aus dem Teammanagement, jemanden mal.
Ja.
Ich gehe nicht davon aus, aber Englisch wird schon tun.
Nee, wäre wirklich mal interessant, ja.
Gut, jetzt, Paul. Los
jetzt
geht's.
Darfst du.
Ja, ich weiß gar nicht, wie ich es beschreiben soll. Also, wir haben ja lange auf die Ankündigung gewartet, dass Demi Wollering offiziell zu FDJ Suez geht. Also, dass es zumindest mal offiziell wird. Gerüchte sind ja schon lange im Umlauf. Und jetzt wurde es endlich bekannt gegeben. Und das Announcement war speziell, anders als sonst. Ihr könnt es ja vielleicht gleich aus eurer Perspektive beschreiben. Ich weiß gar nicht, ob ich es gut fand. War anders, aber ich irgendwie so ein bisschen, also es hat sich so, weiß ich nicht, ich fand es am Ende dann doch nicht so gut, wie man es vielleicht hätte machen können, aus irgendwelchen Gründen. Also irgendwie hat es für mich nicht alles so richtig zusammengepasst.
Also, wir wissen jetzt auf jeden Fall, warum es so lange gedauert hat, weil man diesen kleinen Kinofilm da produzieren musste, den sie da rausgespielt haben. Ja, also ich finde wirklich, also ich bin auch Fan, ich finde Demi Wollering super.
Ja,
ich finde
Entdecker warst du ja auch quasi.
Ja, eben, genau. Ich habe sie entdeckt damals und
nach dem Litsch-Sieg.
Ja.
Ich glaube, aus der wird was.
Könnte gut werden. Ja. Ja, aber so richtig abgeholt hat mich das Video jetzt auf jeden Fall auch nicht. Aber man sieht halt so, ich meine, ist ja auch in Ordnung, man sieht schon, man will da ein bisschen Fass aufmachen auch. Also man hat sich schon Mühe gegeben.
Ja, das Interessante ist ja auch, denn da sie ist ja auch wirklich so die einzige im Radsport-Kontext und ich würde auch sogar im allgemeinen Radsport-Kontext sagen, die ja einen weltweiten Deal mit einer großen Brand hat. Nike in dem Fall. Also Sportsbrand, jetzt mal Monster Energy und Red Bull und sowas hier beiseite, wo Cav irgendwas hat oder so. Aber jetzt so, dass die halt auf Riesenplakaten, obwohl Cav hat das mit Oakley natürlich auch, aber dass die auf so Riesenplakaten in Paris hingen zum Beispiel, das ist schon, zumindest habe ich jetzt nicht im Gedanken, dass irgendwie im Radsport-Kontext sowas schon mal international war. Da bin ich echt gespannt, was das Team aus der Marke Demi Wollering macht und was sie da in Zukunft auch draus macht. Und sicherlich war dieses Video oder dieser Film auch so eine Richtung, ne? Also das ist ja, man hätte es auch einfach als Announcement machen können, mit einem Foto, wie auch immer, aber man wollte ja eine größere Bühne irgendwie nutzen, ne?
Aber Nike-Schuhe fährt sie noch nicht, oder?
Nee, fährt sie nicht. Ich glaube, das ist halt echt so ein
so ein Lifestyle-Sponsoring, ne?
Ja gut, sie hatte jetzt mit Specialized natürlich wahrscheinlich auch so einen Vertrag, der die Schuhe mit eingeschlossen hat. Mal sehen, vielleicht wird sie ja demnächst auch mit Nike gebrandeten Schuhen, muss man ja sagen. Ja. Also die Schuhe, die zum Beispiel Mark Cavendish jetzt fährt mit dem Nike-Branding, werden jetzt auch nicht von Nike selber produziert, sondern ich weiß gar nicht, wo es mittlerweile gemacht wird, aber irgendwo sitzt jemand, der die Schuhe dann macht in Handarbeit. Ja, ich meine, irgendwie, ich hätte mir so ein bisschen eine Erklärung gewünscht, so bei der Veröffentlichung, warum es so lange gedauert hat, weißt du? Also es war jetzt irgendwie so der Zeitpunkt so völlig, ja eigentlich im Off, ne, der Saison, kann man sagen. Aber ich fand es jetzt auch nicht schlecht, also ich fand es ja ganz cool eigentlich so mit dem Film so irgendwie.
Ja,
ich meine, was willst du auch machen? Ne? Also was hättet ihr jetzt gemacht, großartig anders? Nein, also, so richtig mit Feuerwerk oder was?
Nein, aber ich kann ja trotzdem sagen, dass mich es jetzt nicht abgeholt hat. Also mir fällt jetzt auch keine andere Sache ein. Aber ja, man kann dazu trotzdem eine Meinung haben.
FDJ ist jetzt halt auch so Lotto.
Alleine, dass wir drüber reden.
Man hätte auch einen Teammanager filmen können, wie er das loszieht für Vollering. Yeah! Wie ein Sechser im Lotto ist jetzt für ihn.
Der hätte aber alles wäre viel geil gewesen, wenn Marc Mathieu quasi
der hat aber gar nichts mit dem Team zu tun.
Ich weiß, aber das wäre geil, weil der Charakter und der dann so einen Lottoschein zieht und dann so komplett ausrastet dabei.
Also ich finde es auf jeden Fall einfach nice, dass solche großen Deals dann im Frauenradsport passieren und dass wir jetzt ja auch irgendwie was Besonderes draus, was Besonderes für uns ist und wir darüber reden und so. Das ist es ja dann definitiv auch. Und dass sich auch ein französisches Team einfach so bemüht und halt auch scheinbar die Kohle springen lässt, so aber die Tour de France zu gewinnen.
Genau, wir hatten das letzte Woche hier im Podcast mit den Auflistungen, oder hatte ich das im Off mit irgendjemandem? Das hast du, glaube ich, jetzt an den, wie viel ein Fahrer kostet in Frankreich oder Fahrerin mit Sozialabgaben. Also die müssen ja für die Wollering, die haben wahrscheinlich das höchste Gebot abgegeben. Und also die muss ja richtig teuer sein für das Team, im Kontext gesehen, Frauenradsport. Haben wir es letzte Woche hier im Podcast besprochen?
Ja, ich wollte das Thema nochmal so ein bisschen in einer anderen Folge ein bisschen mehr drauf eingehen. Also es ist natürlich jetzt nicht nur ein Radsportthema, sondern allgemein auch. Wobei natürlich die Mittel im Fußball in Frankreich noch ein bisschen anders sind. Aber ja, durch die ganzen durch strengere Gesetze im Angestelltenverhältnis ist das in Frankreich verhältnismäßig teuer, jemanden zu engagieren. Und gerade die beiden französischen WorldTour-Teams oder generell alle Profimannschaften in Frankreich, für die ist es ein Problem. Ne? Also sie sind da nicht wirklich konkurrenzfähig, wenn es um größere Gehälter geht. Und ist ein interessantes Thema letztendlich, was man sich mal ein bisschen genauer angucken könnte. Vielleicht mal so ein paar es waren jetzt auch auf jeden Fall ein paar Interviews mit den Teamchefs jeweils.
Aber dann lass uns das nicht weiter vertiefen, sondern wirklich mal jetzt im Winter, weil das betrifft ja auch die Conti-Teams zum Beispiel, das im Verhältnis zu Deutschland brauchen die richtig große Budgets, um überhaupt diese Teams aufstellen zu können. Ja,
wobei ein KT-Team in Frankreich schon kannst du als professionelle Mannschaft wirklich bezeichnen. Da sind
genau, aber das meine ich halt. Das ist so, dass man es gar nicht mit deutschen KT-Teams vergleichen kann. Deswegen,
da sind die Clubteams ja, glaube ich, schon teilweise professioneller aufgestellt als die
zählst du einfach als Profi, sobald du eine KT-Lizenz hast und dementsprechend hast du dann nochmal ein paar nationale Gesetze einfach, nicht nur UCI-Regeln, die du befolgen musst und dementsprechend werden die Fahrer da eigentlich mit einem ganz normalen Gehalt bezahlt. Die können dann halt schon irgendwie davon leben, was ja jetzt in Deutschland auf jeden Fall nicht der Fall ist.
Ja, aber separate Folge dazu wäre, glaube ich, interessant für die Leute da draußen. Ne?
Kommt nochmal.
Wechselkarussell, habe ich mir gar nichts mehr großartig jetzt aufgeschrieben. War noch irgendwas Wildes?
Nee, das einzig Wilde ist das
alles durch jetzt so langsam. Ne?
Ja, das einzig Wilde finde ich, dass Krypto zurück im Radsport ist.
Ja, endlich mal wieder. So, war doch jetzt irgendwie schon zweimal oder so, 2-3 Mal und ist immer geplatzt, oder?
Ja, interessanterweise ist ja bei der slowenischen Nationalmannschaft, wie heißen die, Next Hersh? Die haben auch eine
Ja, die waren doch auch schon mal woanders, NextHash. Sollten die nicht bei Dimension Data?
Aber da gibt's zwei verschiedene und die haben nur einen ähnlichen Namen.
Genau, und auf jeden Fall eins von denen, die anscheinend nicht pleite gegangen sind, diesen Sponsor bei der slowenischen Nationalmannschaft. Also Pogacar hat dieses Jahr in dem Trikot halt auch gewonnen mit dem Sponsor. Ja, und jetzt gibt es einen neuen Kryptosponsor bei Canyon SRAM. Wie genau finden die ja statt, glaube ich, als zweiter Titelsponsor. Ist das richtig?
Ja, Titelsponsor, ja. Genau.
Also wie heißt das Team dann?
Also richtig investiert. Zonda-Krypto, ne? Also Canyon SRAM Zonda-Krypto? Ich habe es gelesen heute schon.
Ich habe davon auch gar nichts mitbekommen. Könnt ihr mich mal aufklären?
Echt nicht?
Echt nicht.
Ja, also.
Paul, ich saß heute den ganzen Tag nur zu Hause und habe
das kam ja nicht heute.
Am Fahrrad auf dich gewartet.
Ja, tut mir leid.
Doch,
Andi,
das kam heute, oder?
Es tut mir richtig leid. Als ich bei dir angekommen bin, warst du ja auch, du warst komplett nass, weil überall Tränen waren.
Ja.
Weil du geweint hast, dass ich dich versetzt habe.
We will race as Canyon SRAM Zonda Krypto. Okay. Zonda.
ER oder A am Ende?
Und Krypto. A.
Aber
also so wie die alten Laufräder von Campagnolo?
Ja, genau. Das ist auch so. Der Apart von Campagnolo, der Firmenteil, hat sich zu einem
Kryptounternehmen
umformiert.
Ja. Aber was mich da wirklich mal interessieren würde, ist, ob das Budget steigt oder ob einfach Canyon und SRAM quasi jetzt weniger reingeben müssen. Das ist bei sowas natürlich auch immer interessant. Man denkt ja immer, so ein neuer Sponsor kommt rein, ob das jetzt eine Aufstockung bedeutet oder gleichbleibend.
Das können wir nicht sagen, ne? Das ist ja. Naja, ich bin auf jeden Fall gespannt. Wie gesagt, eigentlich ist bis jetzt alles immer geplatzt. Es gab keine Kohle und der Sponsor ist nie so richtig aufgetreten dann.
Gut, also bei dem Beispiel jetzt von, ich glaube, NextHash war es. Oder
ja.
Ich will mich jetzt gar nicht festlegen. Also dieses Ding, wo damals das Team Dimension Data oder heute Q365.5 drauf reingefallen ist, da war eigentlich nach einer 5 Minuten Recherche über Google klar, okay, da ist jetzt nicht so, also es ist nicht so wirklich einsichtig, ob das eine richtige Firma ist und wer dahinter steckt. Und
was war denn nochmal dieses Manuela Foundation?
Manuela Foundation.
Doch auch noch irgendwas.
Okay, da hätte man eigentlich spätestens beim ersten persönlichen Treffen dran fühlen können. Ich will jetzt hier gar nicht so irgendwie mich über irgendwelche Klischees
aber da stimmen sie halt dann doch leider.
Aber wenn einer so im Basketballtrikot zu einem offiziellen Meeting kommt und irgendwie eine schwere Metallkette um den Hals hat, weiß ich nicht, ob ich mit dem irgendwie ein seriöses Business starten würde.
Leute fragen sich jetzt, wovon wir reden, aber es ist schon lange her und ich erinnere mich auch nicht mehr richtig dran. Ja, es war auf jeden Fall auch mal ein geplanter Einstieg in den Radsport, aber der dann natürlich auch nicht stattgefunden hat.
Genau, aber auf jeden Fall googelt das mal. Wie hieß es? Foundation?
Manuela Foundation.
Manuela Foundation Cycling Team. Einfach mal eingeben und dann kommen wirklich so Bilder, wo so 3 oder 4 Männer und wirklich einer in diesem Basketball-Shirt, die sahen alle halt so ein bisschen aus. Ja, genau, ich will jetzt, ja.
Du hättest einfach gedacht, Bushido hat ein neues Management.
Ja, genau.
Aber hier Krypto scheint seriös zu sein, was meine 5 Minuten Recherche gerade angeht. Kommt tatsächlich aus Polen. Und da kann man ja wahrscheinlich sich vorstellen, wie dieser Deal zustande gekommen ist.
Deswegen hat Kasia Nebedommer auch so eine Rolle gespielt.
Genau, als Tour de France-Siegerin natürlich jetzt da. Auch eine wahrscheinlich gefragtes Werbegesicht, ne? Gerade für so ein Unternehmen. Mit, natürlich auch dann aus Polen. Ist doch eigentlich cool.
Ja, hoffen wir, dass da nichts in die falsche Richtung sich entwickelt.
Glaube ich diesmal tatsächlich gar nicht. Also ich habe ein gutes Gefühl nach meiner kurzen Recherche hier nebenbei.
Okay, das Staufsiegel.
Ja, also manchmal, es gibt ja oft, also kennen wir ja auch gerade aus der Radindustrie, ne, so Design Awards, die dann irgendwie, weiß ich nicht, wer vergeben hat. Und hier, die haben auf jeden Fall auch schon einige Awards gewonnen.
Ja, das Staufsiegel, das können wir dir noch anbieten. Das kannst du kaufen bei uns.
Das vergeben wir wieder im Winter.
Ja, so gibt auch oft
aber
immer so Designpreise.
Gebote können schon abgegeben werden.
Ja, also zum nächsten Thema dachte ich gerade, ich hätte eine gute Überleitung, habe ich aber nicht, von daher. Wer springt rein?
Schade. Back to the Roots ist auf jeden Fall meine Überschrift dafür.
Ja.
Jason Osborne hält die deutsche Flagge hoch und wird zum 2. Mal Roboter-Weltmeister. Ich sag das nur, das ist ein Wortspiel, weil Wilma hat, glaube ich, irgendwie mal so einen Schüler gehabt, der hat E-Zigaretten immer als Roboter-Zigaretten bezeichnet. Also ich glaube, der Schüler hat die nicht geraucht, aber ich dachte
Wilma,
jetzt so E-Bike ist vielleicht auch so.
Wilma stand immer im Unterricht mit der E-Zigarette.
Roboterbike. Also ja, E-Cycling World Championships, die bis jetzt immer auf Swift ausgetragen wurden, glaube ich, wurden diesmal auf MyWoosh, Co-Sponsor vom Team United Emirates, ausgetragen, waren da auch in den Emiraten. Ich habe da die Pia Kummer vom Racing Circle, die hat da teilgenommen, die habe ich da so ein bisschen verfolgt.
Kriegen die eigentlich alles bezahlt dann von dem Veranstalter? Flüge, pipapo?
Das ist eine gute Frage. Ich kann das nochmal rausfinden bis nächste Woche. Ich hab nicht gefragt. Aber es war ein Mordsaufriss scheinbar da. Also da hat man sich schon richtig Mühe gegeben und auch zum ersten Mal dann so, wie es eigentlich sein sollte, nämlich alle vor Ort, alle auf geeichten Trainern und so weiter.
Genau. Also erstmal Glückwunsch.
Jason Osborne hat zum 2. Mal gewonnen.
Mit einem Solo-Sieg auch. Und was ich interessant finde, weil E-Sports ist ja, also wenn man gar nicht im E-Sports-Thema drin ist, denkt man ja, das sind irgend so ein paar Bekloppte, die zu Hause irgendwie zu wenig frische Luft bekommen und auch über zu lange im Dunkeln sitzen. Aber das ist ja ein Sport, also normaler E-Sports, wo ja Millionen verdient werden, auch für die Besten. Und die Hallen, das sind halt auch voller Hallen. Also es sind ja wirklich so World Tours.
Auch ja genau, also wir reden jetzt nicht von Fahrradfahren auf dem Indoor-Trainer, sondern von irgendwie, weiß ich nicht.
Ja,
was spielt man da so?
Ja, klar, alles.
Counter-Strike.
Ja, alles. Aber auf jeden Fall, worauf ich hinaus wollte, ist, dass das jetzt dann, Abu Dhabi, ne? War es? Ja. Das erste Mal war, wo man so das Gefühl hatte, das ist so nicht nur ein ganz, ganz kleiner Ansatz, aber es geht so in die Richtung von dem, wie sie es aufbauen wollen. Also mit Publikum, und halt so ein Happening draus machen, dass Leute wirklich irgendwo hinreisen, um sich das anzuschauen. Ich glaube, da sind wir noch ganz weit weg von entfernt, dass es wie im E-Sports ist. Aber ich bin nur gespannt, ob der lange Atem da ist und ob man das zu sowas entwickeln könnte, was das auch Leute anzieht, sich anzuschauen. Ich meine, ganz ehrlich, ich weiß nicht, warum Leute in der Halle, also irgendwo hinreisen, um sich in der Halle zu setzen, um Leuten dabei zuzuschauen, wie sie am Computer sitzen und was spielen.
Ja, weil du keinen Bezug
ich glaube,
dazu hast, ne?
Ja, genau. Aber ich habe einen Bezug zum Radfahren. Ist für mich jetzt auch nicht so spannend, aber auch das wird ja Leute vielleicht interessieren. So.
Es gibt halt Leute, die extrem hart swiften, so, ne? Und deren Game das einfach auch ist. So. Also ich glaube, keiner von uns ist jemals warm geworden mit Rollefahren, aber es gibt Leute, die das halt saugern machen und auch irgendwie ganzjährlich. Und wenn du dann da deine Stars hast und die auch kennst und so fahren siehst, I don't know.
Ja.
Also ich habe eigentlich Rolle immer nur zum Warmfahren benutzt.
Also warm geworden ist er.
Warm geworden ist mir da drauf.
Aber
da hast du dich immer zu wenig warm gefahren.
Nee, aber genau, also mein Punkt war einfach nur, ich bin gespannt, ob sich das in die Richtung entwickeln kann. Ist jetzt unabhängig davon, ob ich das jetzt irgendwie cool finde oder nicht.
Doch, glaube ich. Ich glaube, also aber jetzt erstmal so richtig weit in der Zukunft. Gar nicht in den nächsten 5 Jahren, sondern so in 30 Jahren wird die Tour de France halt in so Fußballstadien ausgetragen, wo alle dann nur noch so auf dem stationären Fahrrad fahren. So.
Das ist ja auch gerade, was ich meine mit langer Atem. Und wenn man sich jetzt wie heißt diese Fußballsache da, was da die ganzen Streamer irgendwie machen und Influencer?
Ach so, ja, diese Kleinformate, ne? Also
ja, genau, aber
Kings
die
League und so ein Quatsch.
Genau, aber die guckst ja auch eher aus dem Entertainment-Faktor raus, als aus dem Sport, weil da drumherum ja halt auch passiert ja auch irgendwelche Scheiße immer drumherum. Und ich bin gespannt, was da so passiert.
Tatsächlich ist ja bei diesen neuen Fußballformaten die kürzere Dauer so die Grundidee. Ne? Weil
das ist ja
man
auch
sagt,
relativ kurz,
man kann
mehrere
nicht,
Runden.
Man wird vielleicht in Zukunft nicht mehr so gerne oder so gut so längere Sachen verfolgen, ne? Weil man sieht das ja leider so Social Media, das ist alles so schnelllebig und kurz und intens. Und das war so ein bisschen der Grundgedanke für diese neuen Fußballkonzepte, zu sagen, okay, vielleicht sind halt die Menschen bald haben die nicht mehr Bock auf 90 Minuten Fußball. Ne? Also man merkt es ja selber so ein bisschen, also wer guckt sich schon eine komplette Radsportübertragung an? So,
Flandern-Rundfahrt, ja. Aber das war es dann, glaube ich, auch schon so.
Ne? Also das sind ja, glaube ich, auch im Verhältnis nochmal deutlich weniger, die jetzt so Highlights oder die letzte Stunde gucken oder so. Das kann natürlich sein, dass es in Zukunft dann einfach ein bisschen in die Richtung geht. Ne? Und ja, also ich könnte es mir jetzt trotzdem nicht so vorstellen, dass ich das cool finden würde, aber
ja, ich finde
die Leute sind vielleicht jetzt noch gar nicht geboren.
Auf dich kommt es halt
genau.
auch nicht mehr an dann.
Ja, wollte ich damit eigentlich gerade sagen.
Wir sind alt. Okay.
Ja, noch nicht, aber in 30 Jahren.
Das stimmt. Ich wollte gerade fragen, wie alt Jason ist, ob er noch einer der Riesenstars da wird oder ob dann für ihn auch schon zu spät kommt.
Ich denke, der ist ziemlich gut da drin. Warum sollte er nicht noch 5 Jahre gut
ich
sein?
meine 30.
Ich fand im Zusammenhang mit der E-Cycling, wie heißt es dann? E-Sport, Radsport, keine Ahnung. Vorher war es ja einfach die Swift-WM letztendlich, aber jetzt sagt man ja nicht die Maille-Rouge-WM. Also wie heißt es die Disziplin offiziell bei der UCI?
E-Cycling, würde ich sagen, oder?
Ja. Da war auf Platz 3 ist, glaube ich, ein Juniorenfahrer gefahren.
Und der hat doch, ist das der gesagt hat, er ist so punchy wie Pogacar?
Ja, so vom Typ her. Ja. Aber gut, in dem Alter trifft man manchmal so Aussagen. Ja. Mal sehen, wie es dann, wo es hinkommt. Aber der hat jetzt auch schon seit längerer Zeit einen Vorvertrag für die WorldTour.
Wie heißt der?
Kaspar, bin ich mir nicht ganz recht. Boremans, also der hat eine finnische Staatsbürgerschaft. Ich weiß auch nicht warum. Ist aber eigentlich ein Belgier. Also, okay. Ich glaube, irgendwie gibt es dann, ich weiß nicht, ob er in Finnland geboren und aufgewachsen ist und belgische Eltern hat oder einen Elternteil. Habe es auch noch nicht so richtig rausgefunden, aber ich habe mich schon länger gefragt, was letztendlich Bahrain dazu bewegt hat, so einen langfristigen Vorvertrag zu machen mit einem Juniorenfahrer, der jetzt auch nicht alles in Grund und Boden gefahren ist in der Altersklasse. Aber ja.
Einfach 100er V2
wahrscheinlich wird da ein Motor drin sein, sonst wird er, glaube ich, bei einer E-Sports WM nicht auf dem Podium stehen. Also da geht es ja eigentlich hauptsächlich um Watt pro Kilogramm. Und mal sehen, wie er das sich entwickelt. Also kann man sich vielleicht schon mal vormerken. Wäre jetzt auch nicht der Erste, der im E-Sport quasi auf sich aufmerksam gemacht hat. Also der Sieger James
Osborne.
Ja, kommt ja auch irgendwie so
übers Rudern,
zu E-Sport.
Ja, und Jay Vine, ne?
Also Jay Vine wurde gescoutet ja tatsächlich über die Academy auch. Ne?
Ja. War dann auch der zweite E-Cycling-Weltmeister und fährt eigentlich ganz stabil auch auf der Straße, muss man doch sagen.
Ja.
Muss man ihm zugestehen.
Genau, dann wie gesagt nochmal Glückwunsch an Jason zum zweiten Titel und lass uns mal quasi in den Flieger setzen, weil der Gast schart schon mit den Hufen.
Der Gast ist auf der Gangway.
Ja, auf der Gangway.
Der Gast dieser Folge wird euch präsentiert von SRAM. So, as we already told, it's going on in English now. It's going further because our guest doesn't know, but the first half of the podcast was in German. So now we switched the language and hope we do that well. And we landed in Peacham, which is in Vermont, which our guest can maybe explain a little bit in detail where that is. We welcome Ian Boswell to the Besenwagen today. Hey, Ian.
Hello, gentlemen. Nice to join you.
Hey.
Yeah, I spent 2 years at Katusha Alpesen, but I learned very little German, so better we stay in English.
So Marcel didn't teach you any German, any proper German, or maybe like the wrong words you should use on a podcast.
As you know, Paul, I'm not much of a sprinter, and most of our Germans were part of the sprint team, and I was more with the Russians on the climbing squad. Yeah.
But how's your Russian then?
I forgot all of it now. I roomed a lot with Zacharin, so I remembered a few words, but I mean, honestly, wie geht es Ihnen? I know that in German, but I don't know anything in Russian anymore.
Nice.
Okay.
But do you know what the Besenwagen is?
The Besenwagen.
Besenwagen. The podcast is called like that, and it's the broom wagon.
Yeah, I knew wagon was like, like a vehicle, but broom. I didn't know the word for broom, so there we go.
All right, nice. Just for an explanation, Ian joins us today because we have mutual friends at SRAM, and they promised to bring us some guests on the show, and you are the first one today, and we are pretty excited because, as you already told, there is something like a German history also in your cycling history, and maybe we get some insights of the infamous Team Sky.
Yeah.
We had Luke Rowe on the podcast already. So
and Christian Knees.
I guess that's and Christian Knees, of course, yeah. These are the two Sky members we already had here. Just for a short explanation or introduction, Ian is 33 years old from Vermont in the United States, and went pro in 2013 and stayed at Sky until 2017, and then 2 years at German-Russian collaboration Katusha, and then you ended your professional road career but turned to gravel as, I don't know, one of the first road pros maybe, but we can
there was already some people in the who had already kind of done it. I guess I kind of followed the path a little bit of, Pete Stetina had done it. I guess even like Ted King. So I guess there was a number of like Americans that done it. I think even the year prior in 2019, I think even, that's when EF was doing the Lachlan and Alex Howes, and I think Taylor Finney did Unbound. So it wasn't like uncommon, but not many. It's not like now where, everyone wants to come and do gravel.
Everyone. But let's start a bit earlier. Like Paul and Andy, how did you get to know Ian, or what's your first thing that comes to mind?
I know Ian obviously from the road. I mean, I wasn't a climber, but there were like some races we actually raced against each other, and we have also mutual friends with like Theo Gegenhardt. So I don't know if did you live in Girona as well?
No, I was in Nice, but maybe we did like tour of the Alps together, I think. And I guess the first couple of years of my career, I was a climber who wasn't climbing so well, so I was probably with Paul in the climbing stages.
But we definitely had a few races together. I knew you from there, and obviously from the gravel scene, and so that's actually my touching points. But I mean, I knew you always from I think we did some American races actually together when you were still, I think. You might be under 23 or end of your under 23s. And when I was in the States for a few races, we definitely raced together. But that are my touching points with him.
Yeah, of course, I did my research on Pro Cycling Stats to see if we did any race together, because I didn't really remember him like from the races. But I'm also like, more. I've been more of one of the sprinters, so not too many. Meeting points in a race, right? But I can for sure remember that you were part of Team Sky, and then I remember in a race they were one of the first teams that had actually their names on the jersey, and then you see the name and you do some research, and I knew already that you came from the team of Axel Merckx. So you were part of of his first development team, right? I think he joined when you were on the team already, I think, and then he took over the Bontrager.
Yeah, Bontrager Livestrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2010 or 11, I think, was the first year there. I mean, it's a long time ago now. It seems like feeling old.
Yeah. I'm just on your pro cycling stats, and you were 2010. You were with Bissell Pro Cycling, and then with Trek Livestrong, then Bontrager Livestrong, and then you were I did know that you were actually a trainee with Argos Shimano that year as well in 2012.
I didn't know that, but I have some questions.
I have a lot of answers about my short stint with that team. I think I did I forget.
I mean,
maybe with. Ivan Sprinkledink. I forget it. But
Sprinkledink.
He was calling me like every day, like, oh, you have to come to the team. Like, you know, you already signed a stagiaire, you have to come. And meanwhile, you know, I was getting calls from Brailsford at Sky, and he's like, oh yeah, we can give you a 3-year contract. And I was like, well, Sky seems like maybe a better place to go at the moment. But it's funny though, you know, because in hindsight, like looking back on that, like maybe it would have actually been better to go to Argos at the time, you know, because you look at, you know, someone who I was racing with an under 23, like Barguil, you know, a lot of these young riders had like opportunities to like, you know, kind of develop, do smaller races, win races. You know, I think my second race in the World Tour was, or with Sky, was like Paris-Nice with Richie Porte, who won, you know, so this was like from day one, you're on the front, just riding after 10 kilometers, controlling a breakaway, which is cool. You know, it's cool to be on Team Sky, and, you know, you have a name on your jersey, and everyone at the time was, you know, looking to the team, because it was, you know, they were I don't say the big bad boys, maybe back then they were the cool guys, and then, you know, slowly they started winning too much. But yeah, it's just funny, the course of your career, you know, you always want to go to the biggest, coolest thing, but in hindsight, maybe a smaller team would have been better.
And that's what I remember from the few races we did together, that you were like already one of their workhorses, you know. And then I wasn't sure if you were actually a young rider or already like a seasoned pro. I didn't know that. And then obviously I looked it up, you know. And then I knew, okay, you come from this program where a lot of pros came up through the team of Axel Merckx. But yeah, you had to work a lot at Sky, so I thought, okay, maybe he's, you know, one of those guys, a little bit more experienced. And there was this Italian guy back then who was, also like always working for the team.
Puccio.
Puccio, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, so I was always like in my mind, it was always, okay, he's at least the same age as me, but you're actually 4 years younger.
Yeah. No, it is funny to look back on those days, because like it just changes your like perception of like what pro racing is, you know, because we had such a strong team. And I mean, it sounds like you've had Christian Knies on before, you know, like the authoritarian of the team, you know, like we have to go to the front and ride now. And it's like, okay, Christian's a big guy, I don't want to say no, but so I better go to the front. But I mean, I think that's also like, you know, at the time, wearing that Sky jersey, it was probably different than the Peloton now, is there was like a lot of respect. And maybe the two of you can speak to this. It's like everyone knew the breakaway goes, okay, Sky's going to come to the front, like everyone else just stay out of the way. And I think the team, we also had a mentality of like, if other teams were coming up to the front to ride, if we had, you know, Richie or Wiggins or Froome at the race, we kind of had this mentality of like, what are you doing up here? Like, get out of the way, we're doing a job, which is, I mean, that's why the team was successful, but it's also like very arrogant, you know. And as a young rider, it's like you find it easy to move around the bunch in the beginning, because people say, okay, here comes a Sky rider, he's doing a job. Meanwhile, you have, you know, 18 other teams who are like behind you fighting for position, and you're just like, cool, I can just go to the front and ride, because also everyone else was benefiting off of the teamwork.
But okay, before we jump a bit back to like how you maybe came to cycling, but when you then changed to Team Katusha, I guess you changed to get a more free role. Is that right?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I think being an American rider, I also really wanted to ride in the Tour, and that became like really hard at Sky. You know, when you look at like the era that I was there, you know, yes, they were developing talent, but they're also just buy talent. You know, it's like, oh, cool, maybe next year I'll make the Tour, but then they would hire Mikel Landa or Mikel Nieve, or, you know, just they could just buy riders to do the job that I was hoping to do. I'd also been there for 5 years, you know, in that team, and I thought, hey, maybe it's, you know, time just for something different, a change. And, you know, Katusha at the time with Zakarin, they're really looking for like a climbing domestique, so it kind of seemed like a good fit, something different, a little change, and also a lot more, you know, in a sense, freedom. You know, I was living in Nice, which, you know, there's a lot of Team Sky riders, you know, in Monaco and in Nice. But with Katusha, I was the only rider from the team in the area, so I was able to kind of just, you know, train with who I wanted. You know, of course I had a coach and was doing the workouts, but a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah. So before on Sky, you kind of had to train with the team, or was it just like all of like, yeah, right, we have the same jersey, so just let's go for a ride?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, there was also a lot of my friends on the team as well. You know, Pete Kenna and Luke Rowe and Geraint Thomas and Richie Port, you know, Nico Roche, Phil Dignan. You know, there was a lot of like English-speaking riders who were also living in Nice, Monaco. So we would kind of ride together anyways. But, you know, then also to a degree, like training becomes also competition. You know, it's like you do a training ride and the coach is with you. And it's like, oh, well, who's doing the best intervals? And then that becomes who they're going to make selection for the Dauphiné. And then if you do the Dauphiné, then you do the Tour. And you know, it became sometimes almost like an internal battle in training rides, you know, versus just, you know, everyone doing their own thing in different places and the coach making the selection off of, you know, who's performing best. You know, you can easily like push yourself too much, you know. And also being young, I was, you know, I kind of became like Richie and Chris Froome's like punching bag. You know, they're like, oh, we want to go do a hard ride. Let's take Ian and, you know, early on Joe Dombrowski as well. Like, let's take him out to the hills and just like, you know, beat the crap out of him up these climbs, which is a good learning experience. But yeah, it's not the most confidence building when you're going up against the Tour de France champion and you're, you know, 22 years old, just hanging on for dear life.
Yeah. But when you then changed to Katusha, because you mentioned before that like being in Team Sky in a bunch, it was sometimes easier to move around because of the name and the jersey. Then moving to Katusha, I guess it wasn't the same. So suddenly you had probably to fight for more positions. You had a leader, but you don't. So, I mean, Zakharin didn't win any of the Grand Tours. He was a really good rider, but he couldn't win any of them. And how was that then for you? Like suddenly really fighting for position and like having a different, how to say in English, like position in the bunch, you know, like regarding of like the chain.
Yeah, like the hierarchy. It was a huge change. I mean, I guess my job in Katusha became like very specific of like I was just with Zakharin kind of like as his wingman, especially in the races that, you know, Dauphiné or Vuelta or Tour or something. If we were at like a big stage race, like I was really just saving myself to be with him as late as possible into the climbs, which is also relaxing. You know, in 2018, I did the Tour and we had Kittel there and we had Niels Pollitt and Zabel, you know, for the lead outs. And I think the first 9 days, like I didn't do anything. I just like hung out at the back of the bunch and like didn't, you know, because my goal was just like on stage 11, you need to be ready for, you know, the mountains with Zakharin. You know, I'm also not going to be helpful to do a lead out for Kittel. Like I would just get in the way. So in a way it like took pressure off like the daily, you know, kind of grind of being in a Grand Tour. But then when it came to the mountains, like you had to be there because you just done nothing for, you know, 9 days. But yeah, I mean, you definitely have like less, you know, and I guess I was lucky to like still know a lot of the Sky Riders, you know, so I could still kind of come up to the front and like, you know, joke around with Luke or G or someone like that just to kind of, you know, I still got some, you know, respect, but definitely, you know, you didn't have the same kind of freedom in the peloton to move around as much as you did with that Sky jersey.
Yeah, it's strange. Yeah?
Okay, let's jump a bit to the past because as you already mentioned, you come from Vermont. Like in every article there only stands Vermont, not the town where you live. Seems like a pretty like rural area or something, and it's pretty close to Canada. So what was it like to grow up there? How did you come to cycling? What were the touching points?
Yeah, well, so I actually grew up in Oregon, so like on the other side of the country, and which is also, it wasn't a big city, but it was a town kind of like up in the mountains. So there was a lot of, you know, endurance athletes, people who were doing Nordic skiing, cycling, triathlon, mountain biking. So both my parents also did, you know, mountain biking and cycling. So it was pretty easy for me to get into it. I also played, you know, American football and basketball and baseball and all the things that, you know, kids do. I was just an active kid. But I think cycling was like the one sport that I could do. You know, I guess I was also an early developer. You know, when I was, you know, I think 14, I was already like 1.85 m or something. You know, I was already tall, you know, for a 14-year-old. So when you're playing sports in a team, like you're always doing really well and you're only as good as your team. But cycling, and you know, when you're a junior, you're very much just racing. There's not really team structure or tactics. Like the best rider kind of attacks and wins. So I was like, oh, cool. I don't have a team around me. I can just do what I want. If I feel good, I can go. It's not like my teammate's going to make a bad pass or drop the ball. So I got into cycling, that way. And I also just fell in love with it. I mean, when you look back, and I guess it was probably similar for all of you in Germany at the time. You know, we had this, you know, exceptional moment of American cycling where we had, you know, Lance Armstrong, who was like winning the races. And I'm sure, you know, in Germany you had Jan Ullrich, and you're like, oh wow, like if he can do it, I can do it. So there was like a huge influx of, there was more races, there was more, you know, support in this national federation, you know, just more money to like help young riders make it to the highest level. So I think myself and a lot of my, you know, like similar aged American riders, we kind of rode this wave of, really kind of like American success at the time. So yeah, and eventually just started racing within Oregon and then around the country and then the national team. And I think when I was 16, I came over to Europe for the first time. We went to Belgium and did a bunch of kermesses.
You came to Europe pretty early. I discovered in Pro Cycling Stats. What was it like? What you thought cycling would be like, and then what it was like in Europe? Was there a big change?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like a little similar, the difference even now in like gravel racing in the US compared to Europe. You know, it's like these big roads, and the battle to like get to the front isn't as challenging. I mean, Paul, you did Tour California. It's like, cool, you can just sit at the back on the highway, and then you get to the bottom of the climb and go around to the front and go up the climb. Mm-hmm. And in Europe, you know, there's much more like technique and experience that comes into play. Like you need to be strong, but you also need to be smart. And so I think that took myself, and I think a lot of other, you know, American riders sometimes can like struggle with the change of, you know, smaller roads and positioning and being in the right spot. And, you know, I guess because I was like strong when I was young, I could kind of like afford to make a lot of mistakes. So like it took me a while to like figure out, okay, how do I actually need to be in the right position? You know, because I can't, now everybody's strong, you know, and I think there's the depth of the field is also so much deeper in Europe. You know, you go to I did like 3 atop in Dorad when I was 17 or 18 up in Germany. And, you know, I was like, oh wow, there's like a lot of strong people here. You know, there was German teams, there was Dutch teams, American teams, like all of a sudden you have 100 riders who are all really strong.
Yeah, that's really like a massive difference. I mean, the first time I came to the US, I think it was actually for Tour of Utah before I did that in California. And coming there and just like, as you said, just sitting on the back, and it just doesn't matter. You literally just, or like for sprints or something, it was so relaxed compared to like Europe. But then you always could see that like some Americans they really struggle to come over. I guess it's also like moving away from home so early, and then like have to find the place in Europe, you have to stay there, you have to find like build a community and so on. But I mean, as you already mentioned, Joe Dombrowski, I think is a really good example of like what could go wrong, even though you are really talented. So, and I mean, you made your way, but yeah, a lot of our guys really struggle. And as you mentioned, in gravel is the same. You can't really compare European or American gravel. It's both the same sport, but it's still pretty different in so many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, the country is too big. You have too much. It is.
You
have too much space to build roads.
But
you don't need too many corners.
Yeah. How was it actually for you? I don't know. I mean, where you live now, I just see always on Instagram your pictures from your winter rides where you have like your fat bike. I mean, are you probably one of the only place in the world where actually a fat bike is usable because you have so much snow, and you have these massive gloves attached to your handlebar, and you just look funny. I mean,
yeah, it does look funny. Yeah. I think maybe. Go ahead.
No, but what is the average temperature in the winter, and like until what point are you actually training during the winter months? So like, what is the lowest temperature for you then?
Oh, I mean, even this morning I woke up and it was like -10. You know, this morning, and it's only October. You know, it's like, yeah, we have a lot of times, you know, it gets like -20 or -25. I would say like maybe like -12 is like the coldest I would ride. I mean, maybe you can go out for an hour, but then your feet get cold. And I mean, the funny thing is a fat bike is so slow that you stay warmer. You know, if you try to go for like a gravel ride or road ride, it's just you're moving too quick, you get too cold. And I've also found it needs to be cold enough that if you're riding on like the dirt roads, they have to still be frozen. So if it gets to, -2 degrees and it's sunny, then the roads get like really wet and then you get cold. But if it's like -5 or -10, then like, the roads stay frozen and you can ride. It's definitely not a place that's like convenient to be an elite cyclist. So when I was racing in the World Tour, I pretty much would stay in Europe all year just because, you can't, everyone else is in Mallorca or Girona or Nice training, and you're, looking outside to half a meter of snow every morning thinking, okay, I guess I have to do some time on the trainer, which I guess I'm in a different position in my life now. I enjoy running or skiing, fat biking for fun. So it's not like really stressed to like, be super fit in, January or February.
Yeah. But why did you move to Vermont then?
My wife. Yeah. She's from here.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, you're asking about our village. It's very rural. I think the town size is like maybe 600 people, but that's like a big area. We live on dirt roads, and I think in town there's, a few more houses close together, but even in the town there's like a library, a church, and a cafe that's open only on the weekends. So there's not really anything in our town.
Do you have to carry a gun with you because of bears when you go off-road riding?
I do see some bears, but no, I don't. The bears here are pretty scared of,
pretty chill.
They don't want to mess with you. They just want to come in our compost pile and eat our scraps.
Because I just hear so many stories of like gravel riders. I think Montana, is it Montana where there are grizzlies?
Yeah, they have grizzlies. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just hear like that they have to actually literally take guns with them on rides or like something else to like in case
Paul
they go
is
wrong.
really scared of
I'm really scared of bears.
eating a bear on a bike.
They look really cute from the far, but just from the far. And that's like really one of the things which I don't like about the US. You have so many dangerous animals compared to Europe.
Why not friend if friend shaped?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've been to Australia before, and I feel like everything there is trying to kill you. I mean, maybe
that's true. That's
in Vermont,
true.
we don't have snakes or like we don't have poisonous snakes or poisonous spiders. We have bears and some little like tick things that you can get a disease from. But yeah, I'm with you. There's a lot of places in the U.S. that I feel scared of just wild animals. Even just I was in Utah last week and we saw some rattlesnakes on the trail. I'm like, I could not live here. Where like you go mountain biking and you just a rattlesnake in the middle of the trail.
Okay.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is what were in the teams you rode in? What were the best people you met? Do you have any bonds to some riders from Sky, from Katusha? Like who were your favorite people in the teams?
Yeah, I mean, mostly I think my time at Team Sky are still my best friends. I mean, Luke Rowe's having a retirement party over in Wales, I think next weekend, and so I'm going to go over to the UK to his retirement party. We always were good friends, and I also kind of feel we're not getting any younger, and more of my friends who were racing are they're all stopping. Lawson Craddock is done racing, and you mentioned Joe Dombrowski's done racing. So I kind of feel like going over to this retirement party is kind of like a last chance to see some of those close friends. And I mean, I think you guys know Luke. He always puts on a good party, so it should be a fun one.
Yeah, it's worth taking the travel, huh?
Yeah, the travel home might not be as fun, but the travel there will be great.
Yeah, sweet. I don't know. I mean, I would like to jump a bit in his current career, or maybe not career. I don't know, because I'm actually curious about.
Let's go. But wait. Last question. Yeah. Any funny stories from your time with Zacharin?
Zacharin's a funny one. It's like it's funny because I think if you look at like kind of TV and movies, like there's like a really like strong, almost like hatred, like compared from U.S. to Russia. I mean, I guess even now, like there's always this battle of Americans or Russians, but we're actually like, I think that it's because we're like more similar than we are different. I mean, I feel like, Zacharin loved, going exploring in the woods and, adventuring and four-wheeling and all these things that are kind of like very American. Funny stories about him. I mean,
I was kind of a fan. Not really from the sportive side, but he was. I'm always a fan of underdogs.
Yeah,
and he showed his talent a few times, really strong. And on the other hand, he didn't know how to ride downhill in some stages and stuff like that. So he always was like my underdog, and I hoped that he rode well.
Yeah, he was a funny guy. I mean, even like, you know, if we had to do like a long training ride, you know, like the coach would say at team camp, "Oh, we're going to do, you know, 6 hours today." So what the hell? I'm not doing 6 hours. If we're going to be working for 6 hours, I'll go back to Russia and work in a mine. I'm like, really? You get paid a lot of money to be in this team. I think you make more money than working back in Russia. But he was also a really relaxed guy. You know, he never wanted to talk about the next day. He's like, oh, we'll talk about tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, he did show his talent, but he also had a lot of weaknesses, which everyone saw on the big screen.
And used to his disadvantage. But like, how many times did you have to ride for him after a descent?
I mean, I remember in the tour there was a couple of times, like I think we finished up in La Rosière, and like there was like maybe 20 of us over the top of the last climb, and he was just so bad on the descent. You know, I think it was that same tour when he got dropped in the Pyrenees, like on the final descent, you know, on the hoods, like, dude, just get in the drops, you'll be lower to the ground and better. But he also had that bad crash in the Giro in 2016, I think, over the top of Col d'Agnello. And I think that like really kind of scarred him when I think he crashed after, you know, Kruijswijk crashed into the snowbank, and then he crashed after that. I think since then he was like had a fear. Funny story, one year at team camp, I mean, I also wasn't a great descender. I could hang with Zakarin, but I'm not going to be going downhill with the best guys. And he was trying to convince our director to let us go skydiving at team camp because he wanted to break the fear of descending. And he thought if we jumped out of an airplane, we would break the fear. So I don't think that really would have worked. But I also didn't want to go skydiving. But if he wanted to go and was going to pay for it, I maybe would have tried.
Okay. I mean, I'm okay descender, and to get better in descending, it will be my first choice, going down or like jumping out of an airplane. That will be actually the least I would like to do.
Yeah, they're not really the same thing.
No. Yeah. Let's move to your career after your career. But before we do that, like 2019 was your last year with Katusha. Why did you stop then?
Yeah, so I actually had a bad crash in Tirreno Adriatico of that year. I think like early on, like halfway through the race, and had a bad concussion. And I didn't race the rest of 2019. You know, I came back, I saw some specialists in Europe, and eventually had to come back home to like see more doctors and kind of do more tests and stuff. And I wasn't able to ride my bike. I think at the time there also wasn't like a ton of awareness for concussion in cycling. You know, I was like, I had already had multiple concussions from racing, but never this bad. And it just got to the point where I was like, all right, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. I mean, you all know, like it wasn't a question of if I was going to crash again. It was like when I was going to crash again. You know, in the World Tour, if you're on a wet descent, it's like, if you're not willing to hold on to the wheel, they can find someone else who will. So you have to take that risk. And I just kind of came to the realization, you know, I was about to get married to my wife, and we had bought a house here. And I also kind of felt like, you know, I'd made a lot of like investment to like be an American pro cyclist in Europe. And to a degree, I'd almost kind of like achieved my dreams. You know, I'd raced on Team Sky, I'd raced in the Tour de France and the Giro and the Vuelta. And it was like, I also kind of found my level of where I was at, and like I could keep, you know, banging my head on the door for another 5 years and racing. And like, maybe you get in a breakaway and win a stage of, you know, Tour de Suisse or something. But also I was like, how much more can I really, you know, get out of the sport? Or like, how much more progress am I going to find? And I think a lot of that was just taking that 2019 season away from racing and realizing that there was other things that I enjoyed in my life, you know, gardening and playing outside and camping, all the things that we miss being a professional racer. I had the opportunity to like experience that, and then kind of realize like, all right, maybe I should kind of envision what the next chapter of my life looks like.
Mm-hmm. And so end of 19, you decided then to stop. You didn't went straight into gravel because I think there was like a year gap, and it was also beginning of COVID 2020, so it was hard to race anyway. But what did you do then in 2020? I know you started working for Wahoo at one point, and you probably still are, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. So I you know, stopped, and I wasn't a rider that made a lot of money racing. So I was like, cool, I'm retired, but I need to find a job pretty quick or else I'm going to be on the street. So yeah, I started a job at Wahoo, kind of like in the early days, like very much like managing some relationships and kind of like getting some work experience. But at the time, Wahoo was also like a partner of a lot of these gravel events. And they said, hey, if you're going to be at the event, you might as well show up and participate. And at the time I was like, cool, I'll have fun and, go ride my bike and, wasn't really focusing on racing. But then we had the pandemic and I kind of like really fell in love with just riding my bike again, because for the first time I had almost a whole year of no bike racing. I wasn't doing intervals. I didn't have a coach. I could just go ride my bike with friends, explore new places. And just through that, I like started to get fast again, not like just for the love of riding my bike and like, oh, cool, let's ride an extra hour because we still have sunlight. Which was a huge difference from the World Tour. I look back at the World Tour days, everything's very specific. You're not going to go ride an extra hour just for fun, or you're not going to, go hard up a hill if someone doesn't tell you to. So it kind of was like very liberating to almost like rediscover bike riding.
And yeah.
Did that change back into some more, structured approaches to racing then? Or did you keep it that way, like, just for fun and, a little bit feeling to build up to races like Unbound? Or did you then go back and decided to have this World Tour or pro approach again?
Yeah, it's funny because so 2021 came around and I did the Rule of 3 gravel race in Arkansas, and second there behind Payson, but it was like my first ever gravel race. And I was like, oh, cool, I did pretty well. And I think 2 weeks after was Unbound. And I was like, oh, cool, like this looks like this is a big race, but it's 10 hours or something. I've never ridden my bike this long. And I've heard all these stories about flat tires and mud and it's super hot and these aid stations that are like Formula One. So I was like, cool, I know I'm fit, but I wasn't training with a coach and, I was still riding my bike, but like with the goal of, cool, I want to be fast for this race, but I'm not, for sure I can't win this thing. This is a race that takes a lot of experience and luck and knowledge. Mm-hmm. So I, somehow, I don't say somehow won, but I surprisingly won the race, which I didn't think I was going to do. It was really just like, I was almost having so much fun riding my bike with fast people. Cause that's one of the things in Vermont is there's not a lot of, there's not a big group of like strong cyclists. There's a lot of people that ride their bikes, but it's like, cool, I'll go ride with my friends on a, easy explore day and we'll just go ride around. So I didn't really know where I was at. Also a 10-hour event. I mean, it's, you really have no idea how you're going to do in such a long event. And I wound up winning that. And it was like kind of this weird moment where like pro cycling starts to like suck you back in. Cause I just didn't realize how big that event was. At this time I was like, cool, I have a job at Wahoo and I, ride my bike for fun and, I enjoy it. And then all of a sudden winning that race, every brand's like, oh, can we sponsor you? Oh, do you want to be, with us? And it was like, kind of like, whoa, like this is weird. Like all of a sudden I stopped caring about performance on a bike and now everyone, and then I have my biggest result of my career. And so, from that moment I was like, okay, this is actually like a real thing. And I had this, after that, Unbound in 2021, like a real, like internal, like conversation of like, do I want to go back to pro racing and do I want to leave my job at Wahoo and like be a gravel pro? And ultimately I decided like, you know what, I can kind of continue to do this on both sides. I can continue to work and like still be fit enough to race, training how much I want and, still doing stuff in the winter, skiing and stuff. And that's kind of worked for a while, but slowly, I mean, Paul, you've seen it this past year. It's quickly becoming apparent that like, in order to be fast at these gravel races, like you have to be fully dedicated. And so for me, it's kind of like, all right, I think this is probably going to be my last year doing it. Cause I just, I know what I'm capable of. I also know what I'm willing to do. And I think those are like in two different places. I also have two daughters now. So it's very much a case of like, all right, how good can I be given the time and energy that I want to put to this? And I feel like every year I wouldn't say my motivation, but people are getting younger and faster and, spending all winter in Girona or in Tucson, Arizona. And I mean, I was that athlete at one point in my life where this is your racing is everything. And I guess for me, as I get older, it's becoming like, all right, I still can be good on my day, but like I'm not going to be good at every single race of the whole season. And I've also enjoyed like the other side of it. You know, I have, like all of us, you know, I have a ton of experience in cycling. It's also fun to like share that knowledge with other people. So there's still events that I'll go to, and maybe I'm not racing, but you know, at SBT, kind of doing like a neutral support out on course with, you know, a cargo bike, and, you know, bringing tubes and stuff to help people. Cause, you know, these gravel events in the US, especially, you have, you know, 100 people racing, but you have 2,000 people just trying to make it to the finish line. So it's cool to see like both sides of these events.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because I remember when we met again, I think that was like, I guess 2021, I did some race in the US, and we spoke, and you said, yeah, like after you won Unbound, you enjoy it. But then you could also see like through the months, like 2022, but then especially last year, that I think you had like this upcoming like desire again to be like kind of professional from the outside, but then it also like last year after Unbound it decreased again. Yeah. Because I was already surprised when you decided to do like a support rider, to be a support rider at Steamboat Gravel, which is one of the biggest races now in the US. And I was like, all right, if he does that, well, I mean, the company you work for is the main sponsor there, or one of the main sponsors. And I was like, all right, I guess he's he's not mentally done again with it. Like, well, you don't want to go down that path like I do, you know. I mean, I jumped straight into it again, and I'm happy to live that life. But I totally get that you are really not up to it. And also this year, I could say like an Unbound, you kind of pushed yourself in like a working position. You helped, or you try to help the other specialized guys out in the race, or at least that's what it looked like. And so that means you don't call yourself professional anymore.
I mean, it's hard. Yeah. I mean, I guess I still have like sponsors, you know, so I'm still a professional athlete in that regard. But it's also, you know, because I work in a brand where like we partner with athletes, it's like the whole landscape is also so different now. You know, you look in the US, someone like Phil Guyman, like he's a full-time cyclist that has a lot of sponsors. He's professional, but he never races. You know? So it's like, what is like a professional cyclist now is like a bit more, it's more confusing, I guess, than like when all of us were growing up. It's like, cool, this is what a professional cyclist means. You have a UCI pro license. But yeah, I mean, there's still like events that I enjoy doing, and like even for 2025, there's some like events I'm like, cool, I want to like, I guess almost have like one more chance to like, and it's also, I mean, maybe you see this yourself, is like, also as you get older, you just get slower, you know, and it's like, at what point do like, you know, do I have a KOM on a climb, and it's like, oh man, I might never go that fast again. It's also like, is it better to like stop when you're at the top, or is it better to like keep going and like every year, like, oh, I'm only 10 seconds slower. Oh, I'm only 1 minute slower. It's like, how long can you keep going on with, at some point you become a masters and you can, you know, go for the 45 plus. So maybe I'll come back then.
Yes.
But I
guess we'll ask Chris Froome then.
Yeah. but I guess it's also like I think the main thing is like, are you willing to sacrifice things or not? I think that's the only question. I mean, and you have a family, and you want to be more at home and you want to spend time with them. So then you have to sacrifice a professional career, while you have to sacrifice the family life. And I think both at the current state is pretty hard to combine. If we are honest to ourselves, if you really want to be home and really want to be like a father who's there, you can't be like a full-on professional cyclist. Yeah. Because you have to do on training camps, altitude camps, all this shit,
Yeah, it's crazy to like look back at, you know, friends who had kids during the World Tour. I'm like, how did you do that? You know, because at the time I didn't have kids. So I'm like, cool, it must be easy. And now that I have kids, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is chaos. You know, just especially now in this day and age when people are focusing on, you know, the sleep and nutrition and recovery and not being sick. It's wild that people can have a kid and also be a professional cyclist in the World Tour.
Yeah.
We all love tech. Take us a bit through your bike, and maybe with the purpose of like, what are the best improvements for you in the last years of gravel? Because you were with one of the first ones who took it really seriously, even if you didn't take it seriously then. But you got a lot to know in the last year. So, and what's the state now, Paul?
Yeah. And before you say anything to it, And I also want to know, I saw before Unbound, you and some of your colleagues, you showed a video where you did like testing in Kansas. You tested like the bumps and everything with like nice tag on your bike and so on. So like, yeah, just run us a bit through like what did happen there. And you were also one of the first ones who actually got to use the new SRAM group set back then, the Explore. So yeah, just
I mean, this is kind of like is parallel to the whole conversation that's like so funny is, in the World Tour, like, Sky was doing research and testing and stuff, but like since I've been a pro gravel rider, I've been to a wind tunnel with Specialized, which is like, I never went to a wind tunnel in Team Sky or Katusha, and I think just the whole industry and like the whole, like, I guess, genre of gravel cycling is also changing a lot. It's like we're still figuring out, okay, what's the best tire? What's the best gear ratio? What's the best, handlebars? Road cycling, everyone kind of knows what they want to use. And like, yeah, there's some small changes every year, but it's very, very like small changes that make the difference. And in gravel tires, I mean, this year we saw now people are using mountain bike tires and some people are using, mountain bikes with drop bars. It's like every race there's someone's trying something crazy, some crazy new invention. For Unbound, I've ridden fairly like the similar bike every year with, the Specialized Diverge, and this year had the Diverge STR that has like the front and rear suspension. And I'm not like someone who comes from mountain biking, so having a little bit more, I guess, forgiveness from the frame is super helpful to me. I think one of the biggest changes for me when I look back to the road, like, is I've become a huge fan of one by. Like, and SRAM's kind of like innovated this path of one by chain rings. And like, I think back, I'm like, why didn't we do this sooner? And I guess, part of it was that the cassettes were, if you had 9 speeds, that there would have been pretty big jumps in the cassettes. But especially for the gravel stuff. I mean, I think that's like saved me on numerous occasions, especially at like Unbound, when you look at the amount of like carnage that we hit with muds and people dropping chains, it's like the one by system is just one less thing to go wrong. And then, as you said, this year I was fortunate enough to get the new Specialized bike that had the UDH dropout. And so with that, then came the new SRAM Red Explorer group, which I was always a fan of the old Explorer group. But I mean, you've probably experienced this as well, Paul, as us professionals have gotten faster, with the one by setup, you start to use a bigger front chainring. I think the first year I did Unbound, I was using a 46 tooth. One year I used a 50 tooth. This year I used a 48 tooth. And so the range in the back needs to also be bigger, because we're going faster on the downhills. You need the 10, but then you also need now with the new SRAM Explorer, you have a 46 in the back. So you're like, cool, I can also have enough gear. I mean, Kansas isn't hilly, but there's some like steep hills where you need a full range.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean,
and if you look at the profile, you wonder, where are actually the 3,200 meters to say on the side? But when you're on the bike, you actually know where they are.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of like short, steep climbs there.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at your bike on Instagram, and I think I already have an important update on my bike that is apparently a must. That's an aero chain ring on a gravel bike, right?
Yeah, that looks pretty cool, doesn't it? I think that's one of the benefits of running I think it only comes in like 48, 50, and then they have it in the bigger sizes for people doing time trials. Because I thought about like, oh, maybe I could run a 46, but I'm like, oh, the 50 or the 48 that's all aero looks pretty cool. I mean, I don't know if it makes much of a difference on a gravel race, but it does look cool. But yeah, I mean, the whole upgraded group set, I mean, it's just crazy how much shifting has changed in general. When I look back to like, I still have one really old steel bike that has mechanical shifting, and it works, but the biggest improvements is it just works every time now. And Paul, you're the same. We're always traveling, like to have a wireless group set that I can just take my wheels out and, especially with the new SRAM Red, that derailleur's so strong, like you're not going to break anything. You can put it in a bike bag, leave the chain on and fly. And that makes it so much simpler. And also, we're always like changing things around. So like I've become, surprisingly, thanks to SRAM, I've become like my own bike mechanic. I built up my first bike from a frame this summer with, it was actually a mountain bike. So, similar to the Explorer group, but with the mountain bike transmission group. And I was like, wow, like because like how simple everything has become, I'm like, I can build a bike by myself. This is amazing, you know, because I live in such a rural area. We don't have bike mechanics. But yeah, I mean, kind of back to one of your questions about the testing we did out in Kansas. Yeah, we had all these sensors on our bike. This was maybe like a month before Unbound. And essentially Specialized was just trying to understand what sort of impacts are you absorbing as a rider over that course, you know, because people were also, you know, I think I was there, Matt Beers was there, and Sophia was there. So just trying to understand, like, you know, what's the best bike, tire pressures, you know, they were looking at different wheel depths, you know, to run like an aero wheel. But even also, you know, the gear range, you know, because Sophia wound up, and, you know, another one of the beauties of, you know, I guess the whole SRAM fleet of bikes now is everything's interchangeable, you know, so she used the new Crux, which for her is a lighter bike, but she wanted, you know, a smaller gear than Explorer. So, you know, she put a transmission derailleur on with a 1050 instead of a 1046. And so, like, to be able to make a change like that pretty easily is, like, you know, as a mechanic, that's a huge savings that you can use, you know, pretty much you swap a derailleur and a chain and cassette, and like, that's all you have to do. There's no cables. You know, so I mean, more athletes are doing it now, like recon and testing. And I think everyone is still trying to figure out, like, what are the best bikes and equipment for specific courses. And I think I still don't think we're near like the end of it. I think people are going to keep like testing what's next.
Yeah. And that's also like actually my last question. And the whole topic about like tire sizes, let's take away like if the frame fits or not, you know, the tire size.
We're coming back to the fat bike.
Next year everyone will be on my fat bike. Yeah.
It's I'm really curious which direction we will go and how the bikes will be developed in the future, because I think at one point we could actually if we keep going with tire size like we do now, the jumps, at one point we have to use hardtails or frames which look like hardtail mountain bikes. And then I kind of question a bit, like, if it's still as agile, I mean, you can make a light hardtail mountain bike. I know that because they are already existing. But I'm just curious how all these things will develop in the future. Because at the moment it feels a bit like the whole industry is in panic.
But then it would be a mountain bike race, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but at the moment, after Unbound, it felt really like the whole industry is in panic mode because they saw some guys using mountain bike tires. And it feels like now everyone is rushing to do a frame which fits as wide tires as possible. So, and actually really curious how that will develop.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not like a huge tire dork. Like, I've ridden the same tire every year at Unbound, like a Pathfinder 42. You know, it's funny though, because I saw that there was a Specialized mountain bike rider on was it Victor? I think he won like a short track World Cup mountain bike race on a 47 millimeter gravel tire. I'm like, wait, so why are they using gravel tires and we're using mountain bike tires? You know, Pete Kenna was also joking to me about this, like in 2021 after I won Unbound. He's like, what comes after, you know, because it was kind of this joke, like, oh, what comes after racing in the Tour? Oh, you go do gravel. Like, what comes after gravel? Oh, you go to the Tour. You know, it's like almost like we could just keep going in these circles. Like my gravel bike now is like way better than the mountain bike I had when I first started riding bikes. I do think at some point, like, they'll find I mean, even mountain biking's kind of found like the right size for cross country. You know, they're all riding a 2.35 or 2.4. I think gravel will, like, in the next couple of years kind of figure out what is a gravel bike. And I think that's still kind of something that the industry's figuring out. You know, you look at 5 years ago, every brand had one gravel bike, or they didn't have a gravel bike. And a gravel bike was just a bike that took bigger tires than a road bike. And even now you see brands having multiple gravel bikes. Oh, this is a gravel adventure bike. This is a gravel race bike. This is a gravel aero bike, similar to road cycling. So I think you'll see like more specific bikes depending on what you want to do on gravel versus it being a broad term of gravel is just riding off-road.
Yeah. And that's also like one of the biggest, like, not problems, but like, I think we're running into is like that the sport is not doable for a lot of people then in the end, because it gets more and more expensive. You need more and more stuff to have to, like, for the right course and so on. It's just I'm curious how it will develop, but definitely this year was like an eye opener, I think, for a lot of European guys coming over.
Yeah.
To see this North Coast, never anyone has done of us, and being surprised by like how rocky it is, and suddenly you realize I actually need everything different.
Yeah.
to what it was the year before, and yeah.
I mean, it's funny because, like, you know, we also focus on such a small percentage of what people are doing, you know, because I've had the opportunity to do some events, kind of like neutral support. You know, you see people who are, you know, not in the front, and it's like, cool, they're on mountain bikes, or they're on you know, this year at Unbound, some people went to Walmart and got a city bike and did Unbound on it. You know, I think 4 guys did Unbound on a city bike with no gears. You know, so you can do it. It just depends how fast you want to go.
Yeah,
exactly. I think that's like what the conversation always comes back to is, you know, how optimized do you want to become? And I think we see it in pro cycling across the board now, is everyone's looking for these small benefits, you know, whether it's, you know, gear ratios, waxing chains, tire pressure, you know, aero skin suits. You know, that's kind of come to gravel. And I think that's like been the biggest change overall, is that people are focusing now on the details. And, you know, even when I did it in 2021, I had, you know, pretty much normal equipment. I had, you know, I think I had like 7 tubes with me, because I heard all the, and like now I carry 1 tube.
How did you do nutrition over 10 hours when you were approaching this so easily?
I mean, that's like another funny, whole different topic, but like now we cyclists actually eat food, which is amazing. You know, back in the Sky days, there was like, oh, we got to do low carb training, and like, how did I even finish races? And now it's like, I just eat what I want when I'm hungry. And, you know, it's so much simpler now when you're like told to like, and encouraged to eat more rather than less.
Yeah.
That's it. That was a weird part of cycling, or like, yeah, I mean, actually, it was the first 100 years of cycling was probably like that, and just changed. Yeah.
Were you part of Sky when there was this onion training?
Yeah, this was a joke. It's funny you guys know about this. Yeah, like Luke, or you know, Frumy's kind of a joker, and he was riding with Sam Bennett, and he said, "Oh yeah, we're eating onions before rides because it has some special nutrition." So the next day, Frumy brought an onion in his pocket, and Sam's like, "Really?" And you know, all the wives were friends, and Sam got home, and his wife called some of the other wives, like, "Sam just told me to go buy like a kilo of onions for his training," you know, because it was kind of like a, you know, one of the fun like moments of being at Sky, or one of the kind of the fun experiences, that they were so far ahead of everyone that everyone was asking what we're doing, you know, so you could kind of start to make jokes of people like, "Oh yeah, we eat only onions," or "Oh yeah, we never eat breakfast." And then next thing you know, there's all of Quick Step's never eating breakfast. It's like, well, we're actually eating breakfast, just no carbohydrates. You know, it's like this game telephone, you know, I say monkey, and then it goes around the room and it comes back elephant, you know, so it's like everyone like changes the story. But you're kind of in a position of like being able to like make people guess at what you were doing.
Yeah. Okay, now my real last question. Will I see you at Unbound next year?
You know what? I will
racing.
I will be there. Most likely, yes. I mean, there's this thing in Unbound. There's some sort of like award if you finish 5 of them. And so I finished 4 now. And so when I finished this year, I was like, oh damn, I guess I have to come back one more year. And I've thought about how long the race is already, and I don't really know how I'd want to make it take longer. You know, if I know that I can be in the front group and it takes, you know, whatever, 9 hours, 10 hours, that's still a long ride. I don't want to like go slower just to make it take 16.
Okay, I get it.
I'll try to get ready for one more Unbound, and I think just, you know, kind of going back to that approach of just enjoying it. And oftentimes, you know, the lower expectations you have, sometimes the better you do.
Just that's the Lawrence way. Just prepare 2 weeks for Unbound.
Perfect.
And if you're talented enough, it should be enough.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I'm super happy. Nice to talk to you. I don't have any questions left. Andy?
Well, questions, yeah. We know, you know, in the podcast we usually ask always the same questions, you know, like, you know, your most famous hunger flat or something like this. But I just thought maybe we start asking some more questions like this. And is there like one person in the world you can choose, right? You go on a bike ride and you can take, you know, you can bring one person. Who is it going to be?
Ooh, One person in the world. It would probably my brother. Yeah, we used to race together. Like we used to ride a lot together. He doesn't ride it much anymore, but because it'd probably start off as a fun ride, then turn into a race, and I think I could still beat him. So I'd put him in his place. So probably my younger brother, just because we spent so many miles riding together.
Okay.
But he doesn't live in your area, I guess.
No, not anymore.
Yeah.
All right.
You can make
Cool.
that happen,
Ben?
I think.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, I think Andy was like thinking about like Barack Obama or something. You'd bring to a ride.
Yeah, but
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
but it's good when his brother is the most famous person he knows.
Yeah.
Who is the most famous person I know?
No, I say it's good when for you your brother is the most famous person you know.
Yeah, that's true. It'd also be, I feel like if you went on a ride with Barack Obama or, someone famous, like, what would I talk to them about? I could like be with my brother, we can joke around from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's true.
I would like to ride with Paul Voss, but he
I never
he
show
doesn't
up.
want to ride with me anymore.
Never show up.
He skips the rides.
I was waiting today, I had my nutrition on point. I did carbo loading yesterday. I had the good breakfast, some onions. I was ready to go. And
Tomorrow's your day.
No,
Tomorrow.
I don't think I'm going to ride today.
Yeah, but Paul goes back to Berlin tonight.
because
like he's at Cologne at Andy's at the moment, but he goes back to Berlin, which
But
they won't be able to ride together
and
tomorrow.
I have 2 hours on my plan tomorrow. I'm happy if you join me.
Yeah, but then I have to go to Berlin.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, because I never stopped training actually. When you just said like when I stopped as a pro and I was just enjoying riding and didn't think about it as a training, but for me it's still the same. If I go out, I check my cadence every ride. It's like fuck, I need to have some higher cadence. This here I could do some more power, power training.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
The problem is Andy never enjoyed riding.
Maybe that's true.
He couldn't go back to it.
That's true.
Nice.
All right, Ian, thank you very much
guys.
for your time.
I appreciate it. And,
thank you for your time.
See you at Unbound.
Yeah. Cheers.
All right.
Exactly. See you there.
Tschüss.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Ciao.